Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 6th, 2018. It's Election Day. And what else can I tell you? If you're not out voting, not out helping other people get to the polls and vote, you might consider grabbing some breakfast and going ahead and taking care of that business for the day. Daily Coast Radio is live now. Bill tells me all the way from Portland, Maine, where he's brought 6 squirrels with him to vote today. It's Election Day. And Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, is on the latest news like glue. And that's not that cheap, watered-down Elmer's crap. The real thing, liquid nails. Very nice. I was going to go with Gorilla Glue on that one. But that's because they're such a huge sponsor of the show. I don't know. They could be. We might as well just say they are. There's no point in telling the truth at this point. Many of you will have seen a lot of people not telling the truth yesterday. Donald Trump on a last-minute rally roll, really cranking it up a couple notches in terms of his rhetoric out there, basically with the line that Democrats are all murderers and bank robbers, and inviting caravan after caravan, which is not a bad idea, of illegals into the country, which is, of course, not what's happening. Caravans aren't that bad, though. And, of course, no point, of course, in correcting him and pointing out that, they're here to apply for asylum, which is a legal method of entry, but hey, no problem. We'll bypass that. He also invited noted liar Sean Hannity to one of his last rallies. Hannity clarifying his role ahead of time by telling people, I want to be clear here. I am going to interview Donald Trump after the rally for my show. I am not going to be appearing on stage. But those of you who know how to read a Trumpster's comment, thanks to my ongoing series of episodes of how to read a Trumpster's comment, or indeed how to read Trump's comments, if you're reading those directly, you will know that that meant that he was going to be on stage endorsing Donald Trump and giving a speech, exactly what he said he wasn't going to be doing. That's how you read these things. And poof, it worked. Abracadabra. It's like magic, and it works every time. Plenty of those examples out there today. Lots to catch up on. How is the weather where you're voting? On the East Coast, it looks like it's raining up and down the coast. Republicans believe that works to their advantage because apparently they think they're being, I guess they think Democrats are all wicked witches. And that may actually be true. They may actually believe that you will melt in the rain. Not true. Bring an umbrella. Don't bring an umbrella. Bring a raincoat. Don't bring a raincoat. You could, I wouldn't recommend waiting very long for things to lighten up. I don't know how the rain is going to go today. It doesn't matter. People have endured far worse for the right to vote, obviously, and so you should get out there and cast that ballot and be done with it. You get a little wet, come home, clean up, dry off, light a fire if you like, if you have a fireplace. If you don't have a fireplace, I don't recommend it. But take a warm shower, get to work, work out. I don't know, do anything. Help others to the poll. Hold umbrellas for them. All right. So there we go. I know, we already have one complaint. I figured there would be somebody who would notice this. I don't think we've heard from you yet. M.A. Nelson. M.A. is what it, are you M.A.? Is that your initials? E-M-M-A-Y? Or is that your name? M.A. Like Emma with a Y on the end. Emma. M.A. says, what? Just hello? It's Election Day. Hey, good morning, everybody. I know you missed that. And I didn't know what to do. I was sort of suddenly struck by, the importance of the day. And I said, should I say something formal? Good morning. I don't know what to do. So I went with something a little bit different to wake you up, to shock you out of your complacency. Maybe you haven't voted yet, and it's time for you to get up and go. We'll be on our way to the polls a little bit later. I'm doing this show for the moment, and afterwards I'll be proudly casting my ballot and maybe bringing our own newly minted voter with us to do the same, unless, of course, he says, hey, get away from me, Dad. Let me do this by myself. But I doubt it. I think he'll want an escort today. All right. Let's see. Many things going on. Where are we going to go today? Tuesday, not often an easy day. in our weekly rotation, as we are without Greg Dworkin, we are without Joan McCarter. Who knows what Armando is up to? Who knows where we'll go if Armando calls? I don't know you tell me which direction we're going to go. Anyway, lots happening. Let me bring this one up from out of my Twitter feed. I saw the title of the piece go by, and I said, that sounds important. Daily Kos leads the way in historic grassroots activism for the 2018 cycle. And that was sort of the hello, as opposed to my usual good morning, everybody. I said, all right, that sounds interesting, but doesn't sound like grab me and force me to read. It wasn't until I saw Philip Anderson tweeting holy S about this piece. And, I thought, all right, well, punctuated with profanity, I'll read that. And he grabbed the highlight from the story. And I thought, okay, well, that really reduces things to exactly what we need to know. It's not a long piece, though, so I'll head over to the full spread here. Carolyn Fiddler put this up earlier this morning on the front page over at Daily Kos. Pardon me. Let's see what we've got today. Daily Kos founder and publisher Marco Smulitsas, I knew this was going to be a little too formal for my taste, released the organization's extraordinary fundraising and Get Out the Activism data for the cycle. I'm sorry, I coined a new phrase there. Get Out the Activism would actually be, I said, what an interesting turn of phrase. It's Get Out the Vote activism, but I like my phrase better. In 2017 and 18, the Daily Kos community donated over $8.7 million to endorsed candidates and campaigns from almost 1.9 million individual donations, with an average contribution of $4.60. And remember there, we kind of enjoy the low numbers on the average donation side. I kind of like that one. I think, by the way, Phil Anderson kind of agreed with me in terms of what he thought about the lead there, Carolyn. His screen grab chopped off the top formal lead and just went straight to the numbers. Anyway, I mean, I think you probably would rather have done that. I think you probably stared at the screen for a little bit and said, what the hell am I going to put at the top of this thing? All right, fine. We'll go with standard boilerplate fare. Anyway, of that total, Daily Kos raised over $2.1 million in Democratic nominee funds. That is, contributions given to support the ousting of 43, in our case, potentially vulnerable Republican members of Congress from key seats even before a Democratic nominee had been selected. Doesn't matter which Democrat it is. We want that Republican out. Daily Kos raised over $871,000 in 7 gubernatorial races, which is another fantastic usage of an excellent word, gubernatorial. And separately, more than $870,000, separate from the $871,000, a very balanced approach, to support candidates in state legislative elections, because they important, everybody. Additionally, Daily Kos endorsed candidates running in state Supreme Court races for the first time this cycle, raising over $31,000 to elect progressive justices in Michigan and North Carolina. The Daily Kos community donated over $6.3 million to Democratic candidates for the U.S. House and Senate and generated over 11.5 million sign-ups to email lists of allied organizations and candidates, providing them with critical funding and volunteer resources. Over the course of the past month, getting towards the end here, Daily Kos has connected over 50,000 grassroots volunteers with campaigns across the country for Get Out the Vote efforts. The outpouring of action from the Daily Kos community this cycle proved once again that Daily Kos is the hub of the progressive movement, said Smulitsas. Do we believe him? Sure, why not? Again, here is where the screen grab hath ended. But let's get into what else Carolyn has to offer us here. Already engaged, Trump's elections supercharged our members' activism, allowing Daily Kos to expand beyond its marquee focus on top-ticket races to include crucial contests further down the ballot. Meanwhile, battles over the future of the Affordable Care Act, the GOP's tax cuts for the rich, and the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court further energized and motivated our community to take the actions essential to Democrats' success today. Ta-da! I don't have a trumpet flourish. I should have that in my... the only brass instruments we have here are for bad news. We need some sort of trumpet flourish, a ta-da, if you will. Daily Kos has led the way in supporting Democrats across the country this cycle, in case you didn't know, by analyzing and investing in key races nationwide. And I think that's a great way of putting it, analyzing and investing in. You, too, can employ the tools we use to do this. In case you are interested in doing so, check out, Carolyn points you to, our election night results tracker. And I don't think you can do better, by the way, in tracking the night's results than in doing so with the Daily Kos election team and certain former members, by the way, of the Daily Kos election team as well. And our nationwide poll closing time map, in case you need to check against your watch, and our hour-by-hour election night watch guide, and more. I don't know what else is more. Let's find out. You can click on it and find out what other thing. It says, it leads you to Daily Kos has all the resources you need for election night 2018. And more. And you can also get a pizza, I think, through Daily Kos. I don't know. We'll find out whether that's possible. We might as well give it a shot. I'm hungry. And, all right, let's see. Armando offers some bloviating for the day. And, you know, hey, we're always willing to accept that. Absolutely welcome to join in. If you've got, have you been out to vote? How did you vote? Did you vote early? Did you vote often? Were you out? Lots of people tweeting pictures from their polling places today, mostly to tag those where turnout is heavier than usual. A few people reminding everybody that most of white suburban America votes in locations that are mostly empty no matter what the turnout is like, and that the rest of the country could do so as well. But a reminder, if you are standing in a tremendously long line somewhere, that is probably because someone somewhere thought it would be a good idea to keep the vote totals down in your district by making it that much more difficult. There are enough voting machines and volunteers, very likely, in most places to go around. It would have worked if they had done it, if they had taken it seriously. Okay, let's see. I want to catch up on a few stories here that we have been waiting on, some of which are Election Day specific, others not. But let's see. And Armando, let's see. What's your schedule like today? You're asking when do I want you to call in? You can call, I guess, at any time. If you prefer to hang out and wait until the 10 o'clock hour, that's fine, too. We'll get through most of these stories as we go on. I did see an interesting anecdote shared this morning. I have to scroll down to see if I can find this thing. Who was it that sent this? This is not a person that I follow ordinarily. And I didn't grab the story and hold on to it, but let's see. It was a voter ID story of sorts in, and let's see, I think it was happening in suburban Virginia here. And, I'm trying to remember some search terms I can use to pull this thing up, because I'm never going to scroll my way to finding it. But it was a Republican operative, I believe, actually sharing the story. And I'm wondering whether that didn't bring it up. But anyway, the story, as I recall, here it is. Liz Mayer. Liz Mayer is a communications strategist. She identifies herself as such on Twitter for Roy Blunt, for I guess this is Scott Walker, Rand Paul, Rick Perry, Carly Fiorina, not ordinarily somebody we'd be following or listening to or valuing input from or anything. But this seemed like sort of an interesting anecdote, and I don't know what, whether it's anything nefarious about it, or are we supposed to share it around among liberals, and then she'll say it's fake and I own the libs or something like that. I don't know. Interesting thing, she says, happened at my polling station this morning, this AM, as she puts it, because you want to keep things short on Twitter. She was not in danger of running out of characters, but that's just her habit. The people who turned up without ID at her polling station, the people who turned up without ID were Trump voters. How interesting is that? She goes on to say one lady tried to offer a fundraising letter that she'd received from Trump as a form of ID. She was told she could go to the county office to get a same-day official ID, but she refused to do it. Fine. Excellent. She said, this is her solution, she said she'd complain to Trump about voter disenfranchisement instead, which of course would be inaccurate. That won't stop either her or Trump, though. You know that. She goes on to say, made me wonder how many older working class white folks, especially, might end up being barred from voting by voter ID laws that they and their fellow Republicans have pushed. Not many of them in Roslyn. That would be close in suburban Arlington, Virginia. Not many of them in Roslyn, but two in the space of 15 minutes seems notable. And it is notable. I don't know whether both people tried to produce letters as ID, but showing up without ID, you would think that would be, well, at first I would think that wouldn't be a problem for older voters because I would imagine that they all show up with wallets or purses. On the other hand, if you are, much older and maybe perhaps have given up your driver's license, then naturally you wouldn't have that with you. And I don't know why you wouldn't have anything else with you, but I would have thought that they would have been more prepared. But this woman actually thought about it leaving the house and said, I don't have any form of ID, which of course I'm sure she had just spent the last 5 years dismissing as an excuse for opposing voter ID, and said, I'll bring a letter from Trump. That's official. It's from Donald Trump. In her mind, it was probably, valid form of ID. The president wouldn't just send this to a fake address, Not this president. No way. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting, and, I hope it happens 100 to 200 million times to Trump voters. There aren't that many of them, of course, but I hope it happens to them every single time they try to vote in different jurisdictions, because every time somebody does that, by the way, they turn out to be a Trump voter, too. Anyway, weird story. Thought it was of some interest, and thought I'd pass that one around. We'll see whether it holds up and is in fact true. All right, let's see. Going back to my own Twitter feed and to things I have put away in Pocket. Let's see. Just trying to reorganize in my head what I've been thinking about bringing up here. Here's something that was interesting. This one was weird. Yeah, I guess we'll just keep it on the light side with weird stories about strange things that have happened and that might otherwise get no attention. And maybe they don't deserve any attention. Did you hear this story maybe in the last day or two? This was a throwaway story in terms of, the overall importance to the entirety of the election here. But I saw a story fly by the other day of a young woman on a college campus where Florida State University, who was arrested after her, I would say, a little over the top protest against some of the students campaigning on campus for Republican candidates, which is an okay thing to do normally, except, of course, she had a good point. You are enabling some serious neo-fascist Nazis by campaigning for Republican candidates in Florida or elsewhere. And she wanted to let that be known. And okay, sure, fine. She herself, a Jewish woman, apparently, noted, and this is actually reported by the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. And I don't know, I think I read this in Forward or something like that. I was led to it by links over Twitter. Anyway, the over-the-top part of it was, and it's not that over-the-top, but it's not a nice thing to do necessarily. She poured chocolate milk that for whatever reason, she happened to be drinking some chocolate milk. She had some with. She poured her chocolate milk on one of the Republican canvassers, which I don't think it was meant to be symbolic in any way, other than the fact that she happened to have chocolate milk. And it's not nice. It's not a good feeling. But I suppose if you're convinced that they are enabling Nazis, well, then chocolate milk might be one of the least offensive things you could pour on them. And there are probably other worse things that might even have been more appropriate. Anyway, I just thought that was a weird story. It was also weird that she ended up, it's not weird, it's how it should work, I think. She ended up getting arrested for it because that's an assault. You don't want to do that to people. Where's the actual story on this one? Let me see. I'll have to Google up the headline. A Florida student arrested after pouring chocolate milk on Republican canvasser. That's a real headline. Let's see. Oops, I've lost track of, let's see. Florida student arrested. Okay, fine. Anyway, you should get arrested when you pour chocolate milk on Republican canvassers, or really any canvasser. It shouldn't matter. Unless, of course, you're being canvassed by a bowl of Rice Krispies, in which case it's a delicious treat. Give it a try. I wonder how much of this headline am I really going to have to put in there before I get it. There we are. And it is in the foreword. A Jewish woman, 19, who poured chocolate milk on a Republican campaign volunteer on the campus of Florida State University was arrested and charged with battery. Now, that's the way it's supposed to go. I mean, it's technically, well, I don't know, battery? I guess so. You make physical contact, right? So it's an assault if you pour chocolate milk on somebody. The only reason I picked it up as a story, besides the goofiness of it, was everyone insisting, yeah, good, she should get arrested, and she should. They're right about that. And it led me to, or maybe I did it in reverse even. I got a comment in yesterday's morning post for the show from Joan Reports, who comments thus. Now, this was before I brought up the chocolate milk story, you see. People should know, she says, the propagandist in chief, Donald Trump, used to attack the press, and he's, habitually been attacking the press for a long time. But for a long time, he's been doing it for years and years and years before he was even supposedly politically ambitious in any way. But he used to attack the press in a particular way, she points out, by pouring wine on them, pouring wine down the back of a female reporter in this one case. But apparently he's done it more than once. When apparently the offense was she had written an article about Trump's affinity for a specific book of Hitler's speeches way back in the day. And this was before he was running for office. And he saw her eating dinner somewhere in a restaurant with, I think, an open-backed dress, and decided to pour wine down her back, which is weird because he doesn't drink. So he had to take somebody else's wine, I guess, and pour that down her back. And it seemed like a kind of a weird thing to do. And I noticed that there are a couple links in there, one of which was to a Vanity Fair article, I think, a brief history of Donald Trump spitefully pouring wine down women's backs by Stephanie Eckert. Who would have guessed that there was such a history? And there's a diary. Not Joan McCarter, but Joan Reports had a diary that she put together on Sunday about this weird proclivity. But then there's also this, I guess, both link to the original reporting here from Vanity Fair. So this is kind of strange. And let me see. Can I take a look at these things? Is there more than one? Let's see. The story in Vanity Fair, and then there's another one here. A brief history. Yeah, we'll take a look at this one. This one is from W Magazine, actually. But then there's also, I guess, maybe the Vanity Fair bit was the article that Trump didn't like. So Stephanie Eckert has this story from November of last year. And I guess, I don't know, it never really reached my ears or eyes, but okay. The magazine editor and writer Tina Brown's new book, The Vanity Fair Diaries, 1983 to 1992, is full of glittery 80 gossip items like that time Warren Beatty propositioned her over a drink. I think that's happened to everybody. But it also shines a light on some of that era's even murkier moments, like the evening in late 1991 when Brown attended a black tie gala, depending on who you ask, in New York with Donald Trump, who took the opportunity to pour a glass of wine down the back of a woman at the Tavern on the Green restaurant in Central Park. How nice. She was sitting demurely in her black dinner suit at the, it was not even the open back dress thing. A black dinner suit at the Parks Commissioner Betsy Gottbaum's table when she felt something cold and wet running down her back. Brown writes of the journalist Marie Brenner, who not so coincidentally had written a less than flattering profile of Trump. Oh, and it's linked too. Maybe we'll take a look at that later. And his then wife Ivana in Vanity Fair the year before, which included mention of the fact that, according to Ivana, Donald kept a book of Adolf Hitler's collected speeches, Mein New Order, in a cabinet by his bed, which he would read from time to time. And that's kind of a weird thing, Donald Trump reading. Brenner confronted Trump about the book, i.e. asked him, and transcribed their conversation about it in the story, which includes Trump attempting to clear things up by saying that, quote, "Actually, it was my friend Marty Davis from Paramount," name dropper, "who gave me a copy of Mein Kampf, and he's a Jew," which he says by way of excuse, which is, of course, the impolite and, more or less anti-Semitic way, anti-Semitically tinged, let's say, way of saying that the man is Jewish. Davis, by the way, clarified to Brenner in the story that he gave Trump Mein New Order, not Mein Kampf. That would be, both of them are pretty loaded as far as gift books go, but Mein Kampf has that extra punch. But he gave him Mein New Order because he thought Trump would find it interesting. Weird. And, by the way, that he's not, in fact, Jewish. So there you go. There goes the excuse. I was given it by a friend. So that doesn't count somehow? My friend? You mean your friend the Nazi? No, my friend the Jew. Okay. He's not Jewish? Okay. So really none of that is true. Anyway, earlier in the piece, Brenner shares another tidbit from Ivana that Trump's cousin, John Walter, would click his heels and say Heil Hitler when he greeted Trump in his office, possibly as a family joke. That is some family. And boy, do they have great jokes. Okay, we've reached our first break. Let's take it. Let's reorganize. We'll be right back. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I have so many good, dumb stories to share with you, and it's a great day for good, dumb stories. We're just biding our time and helping others vote at this point, waiting for that anxious time when the results start to roll in. And, there's a couple of things you might want to take with you as information/entertainment on the way into that. Let's see. Here's one that got a little bit of play last night. Inexplicable, really, except for the fact that, that wacky family of cheaters and grifters that we were talking about, the Heil Hitler people, the Trumps, nothing is out of keeping, I guess, with these guys. By the way, I'm seeing more and more stories about, and this is a story about Ivanka Trump. More and more the stories illustrating her. She's changing her hairstyle. All people are talking about this. And she's putting these wild, long, wavy curls in there like her mom used to do. And I don't know whether this is significant in any way. But changing her look from that weird straight-haired thing that looked like somebody was pouring milk over her head for whatever reason. Chocolate milk, no. But that would have looked different. She's a blonde, as you know. Whether that's natural or not, I have no idea. Anyway, this the very important story of her raking in yet more Chinese trademarks, which is interesting for a number of reasons, all of which are wrapped up here in this piece put out by the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, the ethics watchdog folks. You've heard their name several times on the show. Ivanka Trump's business wins approval for 16 new Chinese trademarks, despite Some of you remember this, shutting down. Yes, remember, Ivanka Trump's business is shuttered now during her time in the White House. It wasn't initially, but she eventually shut the live business down, not necessarily to avoid the appearance of impropriety, because that's not going to happen. But I don't know. I guess she announced a fake shutdown in order to deflect attention from the fact that she was grifting off of her father's office, and then decided to just go ahead with operating the business anyway. Or maybe these trademarks were already in the pipeline before she shut down, and now they've come through. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, and she shouldn't hold any of them anyway, regardless. But what was weird, in addition to her getting these new trademarks despite not operating a business, supposedly, was what she was getting trademarks for. And they knew that. And so did the author Caroline Zhang, writing for Crew yesterday. Presidential advisor, always a laugh when they refer to her that way, Ivanka Trump's fashion brand, and remember, this is a fashion brand, won first trial approval, whatever that means in the Chinese system, for 16 new trademarks from the Chinese government in October. These approvals come about 3 months after Ivanka announced that her brand was shutting down, and mark the largest number of new Chinese trademarks she has received in a single month since President Donald Trump took office. So this is her largest haul yet, and we were already concerned about the last round of them. Ivanka announced the immediate closure of her brand in July 2018, citing, here's the reason, citing her official government responsibilities in Washington, D.C. Not the conflict of interest, but I'm too busy not convincing my father to do anything. However, her trademarks remain a potential conflict of interest as she continues to work on policy in the White House and meet with foreign leaders. Despite shutting down, Ivanka Trump's brand will continue to seek new trademarks. How about that? It doesn't even matter. The excuse of, well, they were already in the pipeline is not operative either. We're going to continue to seek new trademarks despite the fact that we're not a business. This leaves open the possibility that she could resume her business after leaving her role in the White House, which is obvious, and that's what she's going to do. She retains ownership over all of her existing trademarks, and many of her trademarks will remain active as late as 2028. Now, the good stuff. The newest Chinese trademarks cover fashion items, including handbags, yes, okay, shoes, sure, wedding dresses, why not, and jewelry, her traditional product, right? Ivanka's business has previously relied on a Chinese manufacturer to supply those handbags, shoes, and clothing, by the way. The trademarks also cover items including, this is where it gets weird, nursing homes. And that's not it. Nursing homes, but everyone loves the Ivanka Trump branded nursing homes, right? It's a great place to be. The trademarks include nursing homes, sausage casing, what? And perhaps more troubling than that, voting machines. Ivanka Trump branded nursing homes, sausage casing, and voting machines. I don't know how you even think of sausage casing. Not even a product that comes to mind in a brainstorming session for me. Let's branch out from handbags, shoes, clothing, and jewelry, and wedding dresses, just to throw that in there. What else could we, home decor? Maybe, right? Nursing home decor? I don't know. I guess possibly it's a home, right? Sure. How about the homes themselves? Not so much real estate like flip that house kind of thing as group care, like assisted living, nursing homes, Ivanka Trump nursing homes. Okay. It's a house. It's real estate, sort of. I don't know. Voting machines. Surprise. But, your dad's president of the United States. Now you're into voting. I don't know. The idea of making Chinese manufactured voting machines for who? I don't know. There's all the voting going on in China, I guess. Are they making voting? Are you saying you're going to make voting machines in China and bring them to the U.S. to use? And, suppose they were impeccably designed and manufactured and completely impervious to hacking. Would anybody feel comfortable about the idea of an Ivanka Trump branded voting machine in use here in the United States? A Trump-branded voting? I don't know. But so fine, whatever. Imagine anything you want. Sausage casing? Why? And what's the trademark too? Not a patent. She hasn't invented a new kind of sausage casing. A trademark sausage casing. Ivanka Trump branded sausage. Well, weird on a number of levels, but okay. There's Trump vodka, Trump steaks, Trump water, food products. They've been in the business there before, right? I have this fantastic recipe for some kind of delicious, I don't know what, chorizo style sausage. And I'm going to sell it all over the world. I'm going to make it in China, which is delicious sounding. But the casing, I mean, isn't that like traditionally that's sort of like pig intestine or something quite like it? I don't know whether maybe she's come up with a more delicious sounding alternative than pig's intestines or whatever the hell they make sausage casing out of. But I've never in my life imagined, Ivanka Trump brand sausage guy. Wow, is that the new Ivanka Trump branded chorizo sausage? No, close though. It's Wolfgang Puck chorizo sausage, but it's in the Ivanka Trump sausage casing. Ooh, that is uptown. Well, so, that's kind of a weird thing. Now, the rest of the story is brief. We'll see if there's anything else worth uncovering in this one besides pig intestines. This is far from the first time that Ivanka's Chinese trademarks have raised ethical questions. This time they just raised, culinary questions as well as, and just like, what the hell are you doing questions. In May of 2018, Ivanka Trump's business received approval for several new Chinese trademarks a week before President Trump announced that he wanted to lift the ban on Chinese company ZTE for violating U.S. sanctions. That was a little weird, wasn't it? In 2017, the business received 3 new Chinese trademarks. On the same day, she dined with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And he must have said, God damn, these are great sausage casings. Stuff inside ain't so good, but the casing is to die for. Oh, really? Well, it's my own invention. Ivanka receives preliminary approval for these new Chinese trademarks while her father continues to wage a trade war with China. I'm going to put some sanctions on sausage casings now. Since he has retained her foreign trademarks, she has retained her foreign trademarks. Don't make that mistake. The public will continue to have to ask whether President Trump has made foreign policy decisions in the interest of his and his family's businesses. They don't have to wonder for long. The answer is yes, of course. There's no other purpose for entering into these negotiations. All right. I thought that was just kind of a weird thing. Sausage casings. You don't get to talk about that very often on the air. Let's see. Another interesting little tidbit, and we should just maybe keep it to the short stuff, at least for the first hour. Did you catch this story? If you didn't, I know a place you can go and read it. Daily Kos, where Subir has written this piece as a diary. New York Times gets punked pursuing both sides and women for Trump. I saw this story floating out there independently, but I thought I'd grab Subir's write-up of it. And I think I saw the same tweet that he saw here from, who is this guy? I don't even know, but we could track this down. The more important part, though, is the content. The photos side by side here illustrate, firstly, the latest New York Times entry in the Let's Try to Understand Trump Voters saga. The New York Times, along with most U.S. media, spent 2016, Subir tells us, interviewing working class, quote-unquote, working class supporters of Trump. Results showed Trump's support was clustered at the higher end of the income scale, though, as it is for all Republicans. The New York Times seemed eager to repeat this experience before the midterms, this time seeking women for Trump, who are a mystery, aren't they? The Times will publish a story tomorrow, and I guess they already did, because this is from a couple days ago, titled, At Trump Rallies, Women See a Hero Protecting a Way of Life. Donald Trump, woman protector. In it, the paper prominently features a woman named Rachel Marks, and it's spelled with 2 L's there. The article carries a picture of her in a fur coat and carrying a designer handbag. The photo carries the caption, Rachel Marks, 59, who works in car sales in Billings, Montana, said she would continue to support Mr. Trump because she believed he told the truth. Well, that's wrong, but that's what she's saying. The Times thought Ms. Marks was so important, they gave her the last word in this lengthy article, and it goes this way. Rachel Marks, 59, who works in car sales in Billings, Montana, said she'd continue to support Mr. Trump because she believed he told the truth. Quote, I have an infatuation and a love for this man that's not normal. Ugh. That's an odd thing to confess to. Ms. Marks said, I give the highest respect when people are telling the truth and giving their political power. Not sure what that's supposed to mean. If anything, I have a deeper respect now. Blech. Of Mr. Trump's previous visit to Montana, when in the wake of a Saudi journalist's killing, he praised the congressman for body slamming a reporter. Ms. Marks said with a shrug, people tend to get on people's nerves. That's an insightful quote. Well, anyway, so she's a scumbag, right? Well, maybe, right? But we'll need more proof than that. Alas, Subir continues, New York Times reporters and editors failed to do a Google search on Ms. Marks. If they had, they would have discovered that she was arraigned, i.e. arrested and charged in court, arraigned for fraudulently using other people's credit cards to purchase the very items she's flaunting in the picture, which is amazing. I mean, above and beyond. I saw the story that she had been arrested, and she had been arrested for either identity theft or using somebody else's credit cards to receive stolen merchandise, etc. And I thought, how typically Trumpian, right? You're there as just your average Joe or Josephine American supporter of Trump from the heartland where values are strong and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out you're a criminal. And you're there to rail about, don't let the caravan in because it's full of criminals and I'll have too much competition, I guess. I knew it. That's why they think that criminals are coming from Central America to steal their jobs. They are also criminals. Maybe that's it. But it really adds an extra layer of wow factor that she's in the picture modeling the item she stole with somebody else's credit card. So here a clip from the Billings Gazette. A 54-year-old Billings woman is charged. Oh, now 54. That means that was 5 years ago. Is it really the same? I mean, she is wearing a fur-trimmed coat here and has a designer handbag. I guess it's not entirely implausible that that's what she stole, but I guess it's not conclusive proof that these are the very items she stole this time. She may have stolen these from someone else. I'm not sure. Anyway, 5 years ago, I guess we found out that a 54-year-old Billings woman charged last month with bilking a 91-year-old man faces a new charge alleging a similar crime against a 77-year-old man. Marks was arraigned September 16th on a felony charge of deceptive practices. In that case, prosecutors alleged Marks used the 91-year-old man's credit card without permission to buy a fur coat, pearl earrings, and other luxury items. The purchases totaled $1,925. In the new case, prosecutors allege Marks swindled a total of $33,232 from a 77-year-old man. Wow. Well, Subir goes on after complaining that the New York Times didn't Google Ms. Marks. Thankfully, someone did. And I guess here we find the tweet in which we discover some of this information first time around. Okay, here's Clara Jeffrey's version of the side-by-side. Anyway, so tomorrow's paper of record, the other day's paper of record anyway, we'll run an article that closes with the profile of a woman for Trump without mentioning the fact that she's accused of defrauding at least two men, apparently by feigning a romantic interest. In one sense, this is amusing and fitting. It stands to reason that fraudsters would support Trump, who's also a con man and has bilked his employees, customers, and contractors in many of his failed businesses over the year. But in another, it's an enormous waste of resources that could be better utilized elsewhere. Instead of sending reporters to cover these inane rallies, perhaps the New York Times could, I don't know, report on the various ways in which Republicans are trying to suppress votes across the country. That would be an interesting idea. And there's several other good suggestions as well. Chief story, though, here, honestly, getting caught covering your average, typical, everyday woman for Trump from Billings, Montana, in her red fur coat and designer handbag, and all of which very common around Billings. And this time, though, had been stolen from, I don't know whether she said she was in car sales. Was she selling cars to old men and then stealing their credit card numbers and doing that? Or, I don't know if we have to get too far into how she executed her plot. Just an interesting story. Another illustration of the incredible hypocrisy. Nothing new here, but just things worth sharing on a day like today, Election Day, as we wait for the stories that we're really interested in to develop. There's a couple other things here. Let's see. One I'll follow up on. I've been saying for the last couple of days, I have it's no solid evidence, just sort of instinctual. You know how I read Trump comments and Trumpster comments. I've been thinking ever since the numbers on the troops that Trump said he was going to dispatch to the border to combat the caravan, which is like 2 months away from arriving at the border, ever since he was bumping the numbers up recklessly, I figured, oh, this must be another situation where none of it is actually true. I wonder whether there really are any troops at the border going to the border, and I wasn't counting National Guard troops in that number, but I guess if you wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, you could do that. It turns out, at the very least, there are some troops who appear to have been deployed to the border. I'm seeing photographs, anyway, of troops. First we saw them lining up to board transport aircraft, which could be anything. They could be old pictures. They could be going anywhere. We don't really know. And I still haven't seen much in the way of solid proof being reported, like I'm on the ground here and I talked to the commander and there are X thousand troops here under his command. I'm not getting solid numbers, and the numbers are starting to creep back down towards the 5,000 number. The claims, anyway, are creeping back downward. So the fact that they're being revised downward from official sources gives me more reason to believe that maybe people will be showing up at the border. It's just never going to get anywhere near 15,000. So BuzzFeed has a story sort of following up on this issue. Donald Trump's tough talk about the border deployment doesn't match what's really taking place. That, I think, should have been obvious to everyone. Whether you were going to bet with me on the zero number or not was up to you. But it was certainly a safe bet that you weren't going to get out of Donald Trump what he said he was going to give you on this, which is fine by me. Vera Bergengruen has, I'm guessing at the pronunciation once again, this story for BuzzFeed. Trump's tough talk doesn't match what's really taking place. He creates this word picture for people that these troops are going to be hurling back invaders at the border. That's just not the case, and that's been obvious for a long time. Here it is illustrated with a photo of soldiers from the 97th Military Police Battalion and 41st Engineer Company from Fort Riley, Kansas, string concertina wire near the Mexican border. A famous picture, infamous picture perhaps, because it's one of a very few that have been shared widely that looks anything like troops at the border doing anything. The image President Donald Trump has presented of what U.S. troops will be doing along the southern border bears almost no resemblance to what military leaders say the troops will be doing. Trump has promised the U.S. military would be blocking, quote, very bad thugs and gang members from crossing into the country, and he's painted a picture of armed U.S. troops repelling very tough fighters from entering the country. We hope nothing happens, he said Thursday during a White House address, but if it does, we are totally prepared. That bellicose language, however, is a clear exaggeration of what Pentagon planners anticipate the up to 7,000 active duty troops will actually be doing. The deployment includes no ground combat units. The troops are not allowed to detain or arrest anybody at the border. They are barred from enforcing immigration or criminal law. There is no indication that troops will be manning border checkpoints. Of the 39 units dispatched, only 7 are military police units. The rest are trained to do engineering work and provide logistical support or medical assistance. 5 of the units are made up of public affairs specialists, combat photographers, and media support staff, troops assigned to provide photos and news releases about what other units are doing. As of Saturday afternoon, the Defense Department's media site had posted more than 350 photos and videos showing the troops' deployment and arrival in Texas and Arizona. So I guess that means somebody's there to take pictures of them. And, of course, that there's somebody there to take pictures of, unless they're posing for their own photos. You can't tell. The Pentagon is sending units that make sense for the support work they have been tasked with, but that mission does not at all resemble what the president has been describing on television, Twitter, and campaign rallies. This was never a combat mission, but rather a support mission. Todd Harrison, the director of defense budget analysis at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, told BuzzFeed News, it makes sense that the specific types of units they are sending are essentially support and logistics. And I guess that's good, and that it won't be violating posse comitatus laws. But it is interesting to note, anyway, what's really happening here. And that so far, no, the Pentagon isn't knuckling under to the ridiculous idea that there ought to be combat troops repelling invaders at the border. But they are asked to cough up troops, and so they're scrounging around. What do we have that we can send and not get in trouble and still fulfill the president's demand that we send some troops? I know. We'll send some troops with cameras to the border to take pictures of other troops milling about at the border, so it looks like something's getting done. And if there's any way we can make it look like there's thousands of them, that would be so much better. Okay. I don't know. I just wanted to sort of catch up on that one. There's a couple other here. See what we can... Armando's got a suggestion here. Is this something for now or something we should get to later? Well, we can probably discuss it in the 10 o'clock hour, too. Good story, though. Another one of those issues of somebody facing resistance in trying to cast their ballot, and resistance being of the more ridiculous type. You left out a comma in the way your name is spelled as opposed to how it is on your driver's license. Okay, let's see. A few other items of interest on the small scale side, although some of them are, some of them are a little bit broader in scope than I thought. Let's see. Let's turn to this one here first. Another Vanity Fair article. We might as well click on it and use up. We'll put ourselves over the top for half of our free articles from Vanity Fair for the month. And it's only the 6th. They're really getting pretty chintzy over there at Vanity Fair. We don't use them that often. Anyway, this having to do with the Mueller investigation, which we made some mention of yesterday. Gabriel Sherman, who's been a good source of info on this front for a long time. I'm very worried about Don Jr. is in the headline here. Forget the midterms. Don't forget them yet. Vote. Then forget them tomorrow. West Wing insiders brace for the Mueller storm. There's now a flurry of articles that say or make the case that when we said, okay, Mueller is waiting until after the elections, it should be taken like extremely literally. Like there's a couple of reporters out there saying as soon as Wednesday, you might have some serious movement and some serious announcements from out of the Mueller camp. I don't know whether I believe that. It's just not based on anything in particular. It just sort of feels like it might take a little while to gear up. And of course, by the way, it should be noted that we may be kept in suspense about exactly what's going to happen by way of results from these midterm elections for some time. A lot of these races are going to be very close. We don't know exactly how crazy Trump is going to go in contesting their outcome. And even if he doesn't do that, it may take us some number of weeks to get the right answer on some of these really close races in some of these jurisdictions with a lot of votes being cast. Anyway, that doesn't stop people from speculating about what Mueller is going to do after the election. The subheader here, in the run-up to the election, Rudy Giuliani was made to shut up, but now With Trump making excuses for possibly losing the House, officials are bracing for a legal assault. And it begins this way, and we'll only get a little bit in before the break. On Friday night, current and former staffers of Donald Trump's West Wing gathered at Dina Powell's Manhattan apartment to celebrate Hope Hicks's 30th birthday. Really. The party also served as a send-off for Hicks. This seems like it's... was she not gone a long time ago? All right. Well, anyway, she's moving to Los Angeles. Okay. To run communications for Fox News' parent company, New Fox. Look out for that. Over cupcakes and wine, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump, no sausage casings, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Anthony Scaramucci. What a rogues gallery. Reminisced about old times with Hicks's mom, Kay, who spells it C-A-Y-E, and her older sister. One person not in attendance, Hicks's ex-boyfriend, Rob Porter, much to the relief of Hicks's parents and local constabulary, I'm sure. A Hicks friend said, the party provided a brief respite from the news cycle on the eve of midterms in which Republicans are projected to lose the House of Representatives and perhaps governorships in red states Georgia and Florida. That would be fantastic. Everyone is resigned to the outcome, a former West Wing official said. Sources said Trump has privately been working to absolve himself of any blame if indeed a blue wave washes over Washington. He's happy with his crowds and the turnout and the excitement. He'll be able to say, it would have been worse without him, the former official said. That's pretty lame, but he's welcome to that as an excuse. The bigger threat for Trump than losing control of Congress is Robert Mueller's looming report. Sources say Trump advisors are girding themselves for Mueller to deliver the results of his investigation to the Justice Department as early as Wednesday, although it's more likely that he'll wait until later this month. That does sound more likely, doesn't it? Sources say, beside the president, the ones with the most exposure are Roger Stone, lots of people saying that, and Donald Trump Jr. Wow, this would be a great windfall if we can get it. We'll be right back. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Armando is here and joins us. It pretty much actually kind of wraps up. It was a very brief piece, this last Vanity Fair thing. Basically, they're worried chiefly about the exposure to various charges of Donald Trump Jr., who they would they fret may be subject to perjury charges for his false testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Let's see. Roger Stone, of course, also in the mix there. And yes, right. Also that, Don Jr. had perjured himself to investigators when he said he didn't tell his father beforehand about the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting to gather dirt on Hillary Clinton. His lawyer, Alan Futterfuss, has declined to comment. That's standard.
Alan Futterfuss.
One potential sign of how seriously Trump world is treating the Mueller threat has been the near total silence of Rudy Giuliani. Which has been a welcome respite, I think. Constant presence on cable news over the summer, and he hasn't been on television in weeks. What the hell happened to Rudy? A former White House official said when I asked about Giuliani's whereabouts. According to 3 sources briefed on Trump's legal team, Giuliani has been in Europe visiting consulting clients, as well as preparing a report with Trump lawyers Marty and Jane Raskin that is designed to provide we didn't do it. That's it. Provide a counter-narrative to Mueller's document. Interesting.
Mueller doesn't have a document.
Yeah, right.
What are they talking about?
Well, they don't know.
I hate these stories because the one thing I will say is Mueller, nobody knows what Mueller's doing. Nobody. The media, he doesn't leak.
Yeah, well.
Every time there's a big indictment, everybody's shocked. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
Where'd that come from?
I don't know. He does go on to note immediately after. So they say they're preparing a report to provide a counter-narrative, but it goes on to say they don't know what Mueller has, but they have a good idea, and they're going to rebut it. I mean, they have a good idea because they have guilty clients who told them what they did.
But Trump lies to them, too. They don't know what they
right.
And all of them, Junior lies. I'm sure they all lie.
Yeah.
Stone lies. They can't do a rebuttal.
Yep.
There's no
So,
way.
let's see.
They don't have truthful clients. I mean, you know the old story about Trump. The lawyers would come. There have to be two in the room.
Right.
Because he lied to them later. So I never told you that.
So this doesn't appear to reveal that much more. But basically, the other, the only counter to that was another Trump source who said, "Nah, Giuliani's off TV because he was killing Trump's midterm message," which then Trump killed himself as well. So that I tend to believe. Look, he was terrible at being on TV. Trump booted him, and that was that.
I don't know if Trump woke up, and I think Trump knew it the whole time, but he couldn't just get rid of him.
Yeah.
And finally did. I mean, even in Trumpian terms, Giuliani was bad at it. You can see him on Twitter. He misspells everybody's name. It's hilarious.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
He's pretty awful.
Don James was the famous one.
Oh?
Of late. There's a candidate for Senate in Michigan, an African-American Republican named John James.
Okay.
And Rudy said what a great guy he is, but he called him Don James.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I
it's
might
not
make
like
that mistake.
John autocorrects the Don.
No. Well, I don't know.
So,
Probably not. Yeah, he's
no.
got no idea. And he thinks they're all named Don.
I would say this about Mueller. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know. The media doesn't know. Nobody knows. We'll know when Mueller tells us. That's just the reality.
Yes. And I guess the only thing I would add about like when he moves is I suppose it's possible that he might be planning to move immediately, hoping to get the jump on the other speculation that about what follows the elections, which is that Donald Trump moves relatively quickly, depending on the outcome, one way or another, of firing as many people as he can, both ones that are menaces to him because they'll expose his own wrongdoing, and those who are a drag on the administration because of their own.
I will say one very interesting thing to think about is Jeff Sessions, and I know you talk about him being fired. Trump's been basically telling the guy to resign for a year, and the guy doesn't resign. So I assume that he's going to make Trump fire him. Because what's Jeff Sessions got to do now? He's 70-something. Yeah. He's not running for anything else. This is the pinnacle of his life.
Yeah, unless he's waiting to set something up.
Why would he quit?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's waiting for an offer to come through and then say, I've decided it's time to do that.
For what?
I don't know. Who knows what he could be waiting for? But there's a long list of people.
He's years old. What's he going to do?
So when does that, had to be? When does that stuff ever had to make sense?
You mean you go get a corner office and just get a little stipend from one of these Republican firms, and they give him like $500,000 a year?
Yeah,
I guess he could do that. But he waited till he's 70-something to do that. It's like something you do before that. But I think he loves being the Attorney General.
I guess so. People don't know how to enjoy life. If they did, they wouldn't be Republicans and
sure.
77
my point
in office.
Is, I guess, it's possible. And, Graham said there's going to be a new Attorney General, Lindsey Graham, but everybody thinks he's angling for it. But then he said, no, I'm never going to leave the Senate or some nonsense like that, even though he ran for president. So who the heck
could
knows?
Be anybody. There's a long list. I actually have a piece
think
here.
Rosenstein
Yeah, he's on the list
too. I mean, he talked his way back. He was going to get fired that day, according to the vaunted Jonathan Swan, who now Olivia Nunzi was defending yesterday. It's like, what? Anyway, I mean, Mueller is very interesting to see what he does. But here, again, I think the whole problem with all the Mueller reporting is nobody knows anything.
Yeah. Well, it's by design.
Nobody knows anything because he, unlike Ken Starr, he doesn't leak.
Yeah. So, he's, I guess he finds himself in some danger, I suppose, if we start to see, Rod Rosenstein fired, Jeff Sessions fired, etc. They're part of a long list here.
I think the difference now, if they would have fired him before, it might have, I don't know, gotten blown away or whatever. But as a reaction to, say, a Democratic win in the House,
yeah,
there are going to be investigations about the fire.
Yeah, true.
So it doesn't really fix things so much, right?
But he doesn't know that. And I don't know. The other names, by the way, I have a piece here from Evan Hurst in Wonkat. And, they love to have a good time with these things. But to basically run down the list of people who who he says the Washington Post's reporting says could face the axe. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. She hasn't been getting along. Rosenstein listed here. Sessions, of course, as well. Jim Mattis at Defense. Possibility as well, as they put it here, because he's too sane and quietly throws Trump's orders in the trash can.
There's an unstated assumption here that this is normal for cabinet members to leave after the midterms. It is not normal.
No.
Normally they leave after the first term.
First term, yes. It's usually a 4-year stint. People do leave sooner, but yeah. Okay. There's also
White
other
House
reasons why
advisors, people who are going to go work on the campaigns.
Yes. They need to leave.
I mean, Nikki Haley leaving is not normal, and her whole thing. This isn't a permanent position. She said, "What are you talking about? You've been there for a year and a half.
Yeah,
you've done all you're going to do. You didn't do anything."
Yeah,
I hate the cult of Nikki Haley because it makes no sense to me. But
they never did. Let's see. Ryan Zinke, of course, on the list because he's just too criminal.
I think the Zinke might not go out unless he's, in cuffs.
Yeah, that's all right. That's cool with me. He could design the cuffs if he wants. Wilbur Ross on the list.
Wilbur Ross will probably resign, presumably.
Yes, I like the way they listed here. Maybe because, as they put it here in Wonkat, maybe because he's been dead this whole time anyway. So, okay.
Well, Trump makes fun of him, right?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders on the list as well.
Where is she going to go?
I don't know.
Work for Fox, I guess.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know if it matters where they're going to go.
The girl Friday who got the job as communications head at Fox now.
Hope Hicks, who we were just talking about. Yeah.
I couldn't remember her name.
How does she do it? We don't know. And the list, they note missing a name, John Kelly. Simply, I guess, based on the fact that he had promised to stay until 2020, and you know how that means.
No, it doesn't mean anything, and I don't think Trump wants him anymore.
Goes quickly.
It's just that I could see him leaving simply because nobody really wants him.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to tell who wants to leave and who Trump really wants to get rid of in all this. But
he wants to get rid of Kelly. He wants to get rid of Nielsen. He wants to get rid of Sessions. He wants to get rid of Rosenstein. Zinke's a pain in the butt, so he probably wants him gone. Yeah. Wilbur Ross he's done with. Yep. Rick Perry stays out of the way, so I guess nobody cares about him.
Yeah.
Ben Carson, you never hear about Ben Carson.
He's mad about
Pompeo
that table.
Pompeo just got the job, so he's not leaving.
Yeah, I think he's okay with Pompeo.
Mnuchin, nobody pays attention to Mnuchin.
Yeah, so far he's gotten away with everything.
It's the weirdest administration of all time.
I guess so. I don't know how else to put it. Well, you brought some stories with you as well.
I brought a couple. One's very important. I'd like to go through it with you a little bit. I don't have the tweet in front of me right now, but
I got it.
I'm familiar with it. Carlos Del Rio.
Yes.
You see how he spells his name? Carlos. Del. Next word. Rio.
Yes, but not his Twitter handle. It's all together in his Twitter handle.
Right. And that's like the Georgia driver's license division, because on his driver's license, it's Carlos Del Rio together. Del and Rio together, right?
Yes. It says,
and why is that? Did he screw up? Did he forget to put the space in his application?
Yes, he does not know his own name.
No, he did not.
Oh.
The Georgia Driver's License Bureau says you can't have a space.
No spaces.
No space.
Even though there's spaces in your...
no space.
Between your first name and last name.
The guy shows up on his voter registration card. Of course, he puts his name correctly.
Yes.
Because people spell their names correctly usually.
Typically.
So it has Del space Rio.
Yes.
He shows up to vote.
Okay, and nothing.
His ID doesn't match his voter registration.
Sorry, not an exact match, even though we were told that wouldn't be applying today.
Apparently, they tried to apply it.
Yeah. That's one of those things.
I'm struck by the fact that the Georgia government has passed a law that they know causes this man not to have an exact match.
Yes. That's, yeah. Now, there's a number of things that work here with Georgia. One, Georgia is screwed up. Two, they're doing it on purpose. But yes, that's one thing they should know is, well, if they're going to have this exact match thing, they're going to have to compensate for the fact that their own DMV, which is one of the only IDs they're willing to accept, will refuse to issue IDs that match your actual registration.
Name. And your actual
So that's
name.
going to be a problem. But they either didn't anticipate this or, hear me out, they did anticipate it. Right. Exactly. But I don't know. I mean, I guess you could perhaps suppose that it will the burden chiefly fall on ethnics of various kinds who have.
Of course it will.
So, I mean, there will be that, but.
Imagine this no space rule is unbelievable. Why would there be a no space rule? Your driver's license now doesn't have your name correctly.
Right.
What is that?
So now you have an alias. So the first time you were pulled over. So let me get this
That's
straight.
Not me. I'm the other. There's a space in my name. Sorry.
Right. So now he says that, and I guess he's a relatively educated guy. I see
he's a big shot. He's a big shot at Emory. He's in Center for Disease Control and things like that. This is a serious guy who could fight back for himself.
Right. And so he says he was able to rebuff them and vote, but he had to put up a fight. And that gets us back to the point where, they said, look, we're going to have this exact match thing as a way of targeting ethnic voters and suppressing the vote. And then there's a court fight, and the courts stay the application.
So you don't do that.
Yeah, and say this can't happen. Right. And so the first thing they do is they go out and do it. And, and like we've said a million times, whether it's insurance companies or anybody else, or cops for that matter, you just do that thing that everybody supposedly knows because it was in the newspaper. The courts say you can't do it. And chiefly, in the main, people don't read that stuff and they don't know. And the cops, even to the extent they're even aware of it, just say,
they don't care.
Most people,
someone's gonna go,
yeah.
I'll get,
if it works once,
later, I shouldn't have done it.
Right. Big deal. It doesn't work. So they're going to frontline, they're going to do this thing and you're going to say, don't you try that on me. I read in the paper that the courts, enjoined this at least for this election cycle. It was illegal of you to even ask. And, they say, hold on, I'll talk to my supervisor or something. And then they go away and they have a smoke break, hoping you'll give up and leave in the meantime.
Right.
And if you're still there, they'll say, okay, I'll give you a provisional ballot. No, I get a regular ballot. Hold on, I'll talk to my supervisor, make you wait another 20 minutes, come back. Fine. If you don't give up, they'll give it to you. But in the meantime, you've wasted your whole day. And who knows how many other people, if they close their station. Right. And if the guy gets up from the book, I'm going to go ask my supervisor, and that station is now closed, and now there's only 3 places to check in.
Exactly.
Or, God help you, if there's only that one, everybody else gets suppressed too. Right. So.
And that's how it works, and that's why you'll get lower turnout. It might be a 0.3% or 0.5%, but you get 0.3% here. You get 0.6 and making it hard to register. You get 0.4 because there's only one polling location and it's not even in town.
Right. Now you've done it at a targeted polling location where you know the demographics. So, Carlos Del Rio, by the way, just in case you were wondering, I'll read you his Twitter bio so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. He's the chair of the Department of Global Health, a professor of medicine and co-director of, I don't know, what is CFAR? Doesn't matter. It's bigger than your job, everybody.
It's much bigger than my job and your job, and he's obviously a big shot.
At Emory University, and come on.
Come on.
Maybe the smartest guy in Georgia, for all I know.
He's clearly a very accomplished guy who knew his rights.
But his name is Carlos.
And was able to fight for them, and his name is Carlos Del Rio, with a space. But Georgia doesn't know that sometimes there's 2 parts to a last name.
Exactly.
Because Georgia's a racist state.
They're all in the Ku Klux Klan
with no
spaces.
They're doing this on purpose to keep people from voting. It's an outrage. And this Kemp, of course, is disgraceful for everything he's done. This is the guy that opened the investigation because someone reported that he's got a hole in his system.
Yes. And you did it. You hacked it. I think they, in putting up the notice that they were opening some kind of bogus hacking investigation, I believe someone hacked the website and put that up without authorization. And I think his name is Brian Kemp, and you should look into it.
Exactly. It's a disgusting thing. It's frankly disgraceful, and the David Frenches of the world who don't understand. Oh well, the public hygiene and the character tests. Democrats fail. David French fails, and I despise everybody. And this is going out to you, Greg. You've been defending these jerks for too long. Wake up! Finally, Greg picks on David French, but they all stink. They all stink. Well, they're all phony liars. And you can't pretend that they're not. Anyway, that's my shot at Greg for the day.
Okay. Well done.
Let me give you another thing that's going on today.
All right.
El Paso, Texas, the home of one Beto O'Rourke.
Okay.
The Border Patrol has scheduled a crowd control exercise by one of the most Hispanic precincts in El Paso today.
A crowd control exercise.
Control exercise. Whatever the hell that is.
I don't know. I mean, I guess...
They scheduled it on Election Day.
Okay. Where are they going to find their crowd?
What do you think that's about?
Yeah.
What do you think that's about? What do you think they have in mind there, David?
Well, I know where the crowds are going to be. Probably at the polling stations. If they want to control the crowd, they're going to have to do it there. If that's what they're doing. I mean, they may just be riding around yelling at people over bullhorns.
They announce it. It's not even like a surprise.
Yeah.
What do they think? What are they doing? They want people to come to vote, David. That's what they're doing. Do.
Yeah, I'm just curious how it manifests. Like, does that mean yelling at people who are waiting in line? Does that mean cattle prodding people? That means
parking your Border Patrol truck right there and having a bunch of guys in uniforms walking around.
Doing no crowd control, perhaps.
No crowd control, just
walking around.
Intimidating voters.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's how it would go too. You walk up and down the line, and you're not in any way authorized to do this, but supposing you're wearing your Border Patrol uniform and you just stop as there are people exposed out on the sidewalk waiting in line to get in to vote and say, let me see your ID. And, you produce your ID because you're there to vote because you're a citizen. So you produce your ID and Border Patrol drops it down the sewer. Oops. Butterfingers, silly me. Again, where's your ID?
What if I don't produce my ID? Who are you to be asking me for my ID?
Yeah, well, there's that too. I mean... But then they just drag you away.
Well, here you go. I'm rounding you up and 10 of your buddies. You're all going to detention.
And you're going to detention until 7:30 local time when your polls close. After which we say, my mistake. You are a citizen.
Here's the third part of the story. Donald Trump yesterday tweeted that law enforcement has been alerted to stop illegal voting.
Good idea.
Beware, you illegal voters.
That's right, you millions of you. So they'll be out on patrol, and I guess every time a law enforcement officer passes by people waiting outside on the sidewalk to vote, it will not be about protecting the integrity of the vote and making sure you're not overwhelmed by, let's say, armed new Black Panthers, another issue in Georgia. But rather, they'll be harassing you instead. And there won't be much you can do in the moment to stop them. You can object. You could say, I'm calling the ACLU, whatever. You get rounded up. You're thrown in a jail cell, and then they admit their error later on. And maybe you even sue the department that picks you up. Cost of doing business, I mean, El Paso police pay out $1 million, $10 million payday, seek relief from the federal government headed by Donald Trump, who asked him to do this. grant is on its way from the Department of Justice. You want to keep your job, Jeff Sessions? Send $10 million to El Paso. Make up for that stupid judgment they had to pay for rousting brown people on Election Day.
That's right. So,
Simple.
as you can see, there, the nefariousness, the malice, the malevolent, evil nature of the Republican Party is manifest here. It's not possible to not see it. It's only possible to pretend to not see it. Which brings me to the New York Times, which is another tweet that I sent you.
Okay.
And if you read it,
I see it.
It's a story about Sean Hannity and the Fox All-Stars appearing at Trump's rally last night.
Yes, I mentioned this earlier, and their tweet on it. The line between the Trump White House and Fox has always been a little blurry. They keep moving people back and forth between the two, as a matter of fact. But at a rally on Monday, the fusion of president and network seemed complete.
A little blurry.
Yeah.
What is the New York Times? Where's the New York Times been living?
Are
they on Mars or something?
Oh, possibly. Yeah.
The Fox News from Fox and Friends to
I see what you mean.
Tucker Carlson or whatever the 10 o'clock show is now. And then Saturdays, of course, it's Crazy Jeanine Pirro and Lou Dobbs. And it's the Trump network. I mean,
well,
it's
so
state
what's happening
propaganda.
here is...
What are they talking about seemingly blurry? What is that?
Well, it's blur-tinged, really, is all that's happening here.
I guess so.
Yes.
This is why the New York Times is useless. I know you guys will defend it and blah, 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 but the New York Times is useless.
I don't defend them. I use them too much to not pay. But that's, I guess, enough defense. But
what do you use them for? What do they tell you that you don't find out otherwise?
I don't know. Occasionally something. Must be something.
Their
Otherwise,
investigative unit will break big stories.
Yes.
Their political unit will bury the big story that the investigative unit broke.
We use them to I need to read you this piece of trash. Occasionally, we do have that. And then the investigative unit where we say, if I don't tell you about this, no one will, because they'll reveal that Donald Trump is a fraud through and through, and everyone will look away. So I better read it to you. So we have a few things like that.
Do you see what I'm getting? The overall, what is the most read, most followed, most important impact that the New York Times has on our discourse? It's political reporting.
Yes, I suppose
it's political reporting is a cancer in our society. Maggie Haberman is a cancer. She's a talented person who has used her talents for nefarious ends. She does damage to the Republic. Dean Beckett does damage to the Republic. Peter Baker's a good reporter. He has been misused. Someone needs to tell him, don't write these things this way. Write directly. Tell the truth. You know, and there's a collection of motley crew of terrible reporters there as well. So they're awful. But even the talented people are so badly edited, so badly directed and led that the New York Times is a cancer on our society. And I can't get people to see it that way because, what about the investigative unit? What about the business news? What about that great story on
the business
this
news.
and that? I said, yes, that's fine. They do 7 interesting stories a year, but 3,000 bad politics stories overwhelm that. You are supporting that in order to get your one great investigative scoop. It's not a good trade-off.
It's not. I don't feel great about it.
I'm just telling you, the Washington Post is the better newspaper because its overall presentation is better in terms of presenting the truth and the news, and it's better for the country. So I say to you that you're better off supporting and subscribing to the Washington Post, but obviously people will do what they do.
Yeah.
So
I might be willing to try going with that. I mean, we did it for a long time without. Mostly it was a matter of, hey, even if this is a train wreck, I want to read this, and damn, I'm on the air, and now I have to try and manipulate Pocket in a way that will give me the text without my actually having to pay for it. And I felt I felt stupid about that and saying, hey, everyone needs to support this show while I, cheat the New York Times out of their money. But I don't know, because it's gotten so egregious, maybe it's worth reconsidering.
Well, you have 10 freebies or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
usually
you know what?
the thing.
People will do what they do. No one's paying attention to me on this anyway. They've got 4 million subscribers, so
all right.
What else is new?
Let's end this complaint-tinged segment and come back.
Oh, I've got more. I've got grievances. This is not done.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, I think we're back. Let's assume we're back. The timer says we should be back. We had a very weird glitch during the break in which all audio stopped dead. My music stopped. That's a great tragedy as it is. And lost Armando for a second, but the connection never ceased. So fingers crossed that we don't now get a message from Justice saying, what happened to you guys? You're off the air. Everything hopefully is okay. Let's continue on with, as we said, this complaint-tinged episode of the show today. You have a couple other stories?
Well, I've got some positive thoughts.
Okay.
And just sort of a rundown of when the news starts coming in.
Yeah.
There is, I think, a real story that's been really played by Ron Brownstein more than anybody else. But I think it dovetails into what I was talking to you about yesterday, the geographic advantages or what has been disadvantages for Democrats with the rural white working class concentration in certain areas. I do think that the college-educated voter in the suburbs will probably vote Democratic today. Mm-hmm. And I think we do take back the House because of that. And I think we'll get early indications as early as 6, and that's the race in Kentucky. Amy McGrath, the former fighter pilot running for the Democratic Party, first-time candidate. And kudos to all the first-time candidates for throwing their hats in the ring, for getting in the arena. I'm a loudmouth, but I would never do that. I'd be scared to. Because it's a tough road where you're in public and everybody's just yelling at you and saying how awful you are. It's you got to give those people credit and give credit to all the campaigns and the volunteers who have worked so hard for this day. We're hoping for good news, of course, at the end of the day, and hopefully the good news starts in Kentucky 6. Amy McGrath. Kentucky, for its own reasons, has very early polling closures. I think it's at 6 o'clock. I believe Indiana is also very early, but not at 6. I think Indiana's at 7. I think those are the two early day states. But Amy McGrath will tell us a lot. Andy Barr is the incumbent. It was basically drawn as a safe Republican seat. It has about, I think, 7 or 8 point Republican lean. That is, it's more Republican than the country by 7 or 8 points. If we are there, and it takes a while to call that race, I think that's a good sign. Why is McGrath in the race? Because it's near Lexington. Mm-hmm. Lexington is where the University of Kentucky is located. The University of Kentucky area, of course, will have many college-educated people as well as college students. The rest of the district, of course, is very rural, and McGrath will certainly get wiped out there. The question is, what are the white college-educated voters in Kentucky in the Lexington area going to do? Will they vote strongly for McGrath? If they do, this is going to be tight and close, and we've got a chance. If they don't, I would see that as a bad indicator for us that we did not convince enough white college-educated voters to come our way. And we will see what happens then. 7 o'clock, Florida closes in most of the state. The Panhandle, as usual, closes at 8. It's an old story from if you are old enough to remember Bush v. Gore.
Yeah.
They called Florida before 8 o'clock for Gore. There was a big to-do. They had to pull it back, and then they recalled it. And then at the end of the night, Fox called Florida for Bush, as you'll recall.
Yeah.
That was wrong as well, and the votes trickled in, and it was basically a tie because Susan Butcher, it wasn't Susan Butcher, it was she's the new one. The Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections designed the butterfly ballot.
Oh, yes, right.
Which costs the election, the presidency, a war in Iraq, a Great Recession in 2008,
yes.
Lepore. Teresa Lepore was.
That's right, yes. Not to mention the inflation and subsequent deflation of Pat Buchanan's ego, who thought he did great.
Right.
Only to find out Lepore had screwed him. All right.
And people think that's exaggeration. It's not. That literally, that ballot cost us the presidency. And Teresa Lepore had to live with it for the rest of her life. Poor woman.
It's a strange design. I mean,
it wasn't malicious. It was just incompetent.
I don't even know how you come up with such a thing, to be honest. I mean, did they used to have that before, and she just declined to change it? Who decides? Well, we can only, the smart way of doing this is to only have one row of places where you can make a mark. You don't want multiple rows.
Yeah.
I have Scantron.
If you've seen the Florida ballot design from now on, and this is what actually people complain about. We have 7 and 8 page ballots now because there's like 13 constitutional amendments, but there's 2 pages of candidate voting.
Yeah,
it's hard to do. You can't do it on one thing. And before it was, we had the punch cards and whatnot, which was also disastrous.
Right.
Florida actually has a tremendous system now, except for the voter ID stuff and the felons not being able to vote. That's Amendment 13. For those of you in Florida, vote yes on Amendment 4. Vote yes on Amendment 4. Vote no on everything else.
Okay.
But now it's all impossible to screw up, really. The voter error here seems very difficult. But, there always is some voter error, but it's really been reduced. There really is very few votes returned not voting now in Florida. It's actually got a very nice system, except for the registration side of it.
Yeah.
And the voter ID part of it goes with the registration, of course. And so unlike in Georgia, where they suppress you at the poll, in Florida, they suppress you at the registration.
Yeah, although I'm sure everybody does a little of what they can.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure Georgia does
sure.
both, and overtime, working overtime to do it. But Florida actually fixed it. Here's a guy who actually had a lot to do with it. It's Charlie Crist at the time. He was the Republican governor of Florida. He fixed the ballots. He fixed early voting, and participation in Florida is actually incredibly high for a not mail-in state. Mail-in states, of course, do the best. In that, Oregon has 80% participation or something like that. Something very impressive and good for them. Florida does well with registered voters. The turnout will be over 65%, I believe, of registered voters.
Pretty good.
By the time this is all said and done in the midterm, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. The turnout was big in 2016, much to my chagrin. A lot of infrequent white voters came in from the exurbs and gave Trump the victory on Election Day. In terms of Florida today, that's something to look for, though the analysis seems to be that they've gotten a good chunk of their voters already from 2016. The feeling is pretty good that we'll hold on and win today. The less cannibalization by Democrats, more cannibalization of Election Day votes by Republicans, more infrequent new voters in Florida, more young voters, more Hispanic voters came in on the weekend. It's shaping up fairly nicely. The conditions are good. So we feel like we're going to win, but you won't know till they've counted all the votes in Florida. The college-educated voter, again, the white college-educated MPA, the no party affiliation voter, is going to be key here. We'll know a lot. At 7 in Florida, in Miami-Dade, we want to win. We want to flip 2 districts. We want to flip a few districts in Central Florida. We'll know a lot about where we stand by 8 o'clock. When Florida, which counts ballots very quickly, by 8 p.m. you'll know a lot in Florida. We'll know a lot in Kentucky. We'll know Joe Donnelly by 8 o'clock. See if he survived. It's going to be tough. I'm actually a little skeptical about that one. I got to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think Indiana might fall. McCaskill has fought back. I'm hearing voting is great. I'm a little skeptical of that result. Manchin's going to win. Joe Manchin always wins, right? We'll win I believe in Wisconsin. Michigan, there's some polls that show it tighter than what we like. Our guy Bob Menendez, vote for the Kuruk. It's important. Is the polling? He hasn't been behind in any poll. He hasn't been behind less than 7 points ahead in a month. So that'd be a shocker to me. We're trying to win some seats in New York, but that's not going to close till 9, so you won't know about New York till much later in the night, and New York counts incredibly slowly, so it's going to be midnight before you know anything real in New York in terms of gains. I don't know what other early indicators people will look for, but for me, it's Florida, Kentucky. Those are the ones that I will look for. Indiana, if we hold Indiana, I'll be thrilled to death. I would bet against it, but that's me. I'm pessimistic on the Senate right now, but I think that pessimistic on winning seats in the Senate. I'm actually very heartened by the map in the sense that it's a terrible, awful map, and we're not going to lose 6 seats, which seemed very plausible at the time.
Yeah. So we've rebounded nicely. I keep hearing about the possibility that California, which obviously would be one of the later states to have the polls closed, but in addition that they anticipate the count taking an extraordinarily long time in California. I don't know whether that's just traditionally been the case and they think high turnout will make it worse, or there's some new factor involved here. But, there's an enormous number of, I don't know how many seats are competitive, but there's an enormous number of seats in Congress, certainly, to sort out there. But I don't think all of them will take forever to count. I don't know whether you have seen the same.
I saw the reports. It seemed a little, I know they take a long time to count. I got that, but I think they usually call them that night. So
yeah,
is this a new problem? It would sound.
I don't know. I didn't get a chance. Many things we had to, there were must reads. That one wasn't for me, and I guess we'll look to the California natives to see if they can explain that one. But speaking of Florida, we do have a comment here. Did you see Boo Radley's comment saying, I can't help but feel that retiring Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi is going to wind up with Trump in some capacity. I didn't realize she was done, but perhaps replacing Sessions there.
I can't see that.
If only on an interim basis. But,
do they think so? Even though Republicans don't think that little of the Attorney General's job.
I don't know.
Come on.
It may not be a matter of the rest of them thinking it. It may only take one person thinking it. And he's pretty dumb.
Pam Bondi. First, he's a sexist. He's not going to pick her. I understand the theory that she'll be there and do whatever he wants, which is true. She's done it before. she's been bribed by before, so certainly. And she'd say, I don't have to recuse because I don't have to recuse.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Just say that.
There's no old Francisco.
Maybe she could be UN ambassador.
She is such a lightweight, though, that I think remember, the Republicans have all these legal politico types who have very high opinions of themselves.
True.
And Sessions was a senator. He actually was a U.S. attorney for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
He was, he's a racist. Don't get me wrong, but at least there was some semblance of qualification there. I mean, I know putting aside being a racist thing is hard to do, but he had experience. He ran the U.S. Attorney's Office in Alabama.
Yes. Is there something, some lesser job where she could be hired for the specific purpose of firing someone and then be shunted aside? I don't know where you would fit that person in, but
I'd bring her in as White House counsel. I think that would be very appropriate.
Why not? Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't be worse than Harriet Myers. She's not qualified
to do anything, and I think it's very telling that one thing that Bondi didn't have somewhere to go. She didn't run for a different office.
Yes, that's sort of unusual.
I think, interesting. And she, and DeSantis ran for governor. Why didn't she run for governor?
Yeah, I don't know. She was busy with something, I guess, doing something for Trump, or she was holding out, thinking she would get something important and fun. Maybe she wants to be UN ambassador.
Maybe you know what? Could she come in to replace Kristen Nielsen?
Sure.
That I could see.
Why not?
I mean, it's not like Kristen Nielsen's qualified.
Right.
Another
blonde
seriously,
lady.
She is not qualified. She was not qualified for that job.
No. And it hasn't. It hasn't worked out very well for her. She's also not even able to stay on Trump's right side, which is something you do by doing whatever he says. It's a simple game.
I'm not at all sure what she did wrong, but apparently she did something wrong, and Trump got pissed off. But it's not like she wasn't racist enough. She was plenty racist.
Become competent at her job, I think, and that was a problem.
I think she did a little bit too much PR for herself a little bit. I think maybe that's what. Remember, I don't think Trump likes people doing PR for themselves. He wants them all doing PR for him.
Yes, he likes doing PR for himself, but
he wants
not having others
doing PR for him.
But, yes.
At this rally last night, Kellyanne Conway and Sarah Sanders and Ivanka Trump were there too, right?
Were they?
Because that was going to fix his women problem. At one rally in Missouri with Rush Limbaugh. Limbaugh was at the rally.
So he brought the White House staff to the political rally?
Yeah, but they went on their own dimes. But
Ivanka's dime is Dad's dime.
Yeah,
okay.
The whole thing is ridiculous.
Okay.
And it's also ridiculous to think that Ivanka Trump and Sarah Sanders and Kellyanne Conway sway any women voters anyway. I mean, to the degree they sway women voters, you already have those voters, the crazy Republican voters. It's not like a undecided woman said, "Oh, well, there's Kellyanne Conway. I guess Trump's okay with women." I don't see that happening.
Right. The blonde ladies in the front, they were already.
And Sarah Sanders, of course, is terrible.
Yes. Well, that's just flat true.
Hey, that's just flat true, right?
Yeah, can't dispute that.
So
all right.
That's the other thing that's going on. The questions that and it's crazy to get our heads ahead of ourselves, but let me ask you this for 15 minutes. Whatever happens, let's suppose Democrats do well, let's suppose Democrats do badly, or don't do well enough. What is it that the Republicans will want to do in the lame duck, if anything?
That's a good question. Somebody brought that up last night, and I saw various folks rebuff, the idea that anything too crazy would happen because, as they were reminding us, well, you still, even at the moment anyway, you still need 60 votes to get anything through the Senate.
Right, they don't have any reconciliation instructions is the idea. Right?
So they don't have that, and presumably, I mean, it wouldn't be beyond their, capabilities or whatever, or beyond the pale for them to say, all right, well, maybe we nuke the filibuster in the lame duck and do that. But there's just nothing I don't think
Yeah,
they
I don't
have
think-
anything waiting in the wings that's worth
There's nothing
doing
big enough for that. I mean, that they're going to save for something else, and I don't know what, but they'll have something in mind.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what they will do other than, I mean, I guess it depends. We'll watch the outcome, see how, it may just depend on how angry Trump gets tonight and what does he demand of them. And I don't know, they may launch investigations of things, but they'll never, and they may just be doing it to assuage the president's anger. I demand an investigation. All right, we'll launch an investigation. An announcement goes out, the press release goes out, the papers report it, but the members of the committee don't even return to Washington for anything, even to pack
You
their
mean an
boxes.
investigation, a congressional investigation?
Yeah,
Oh,
like that
no,
he would
can't do
demand
that.
something.
There's
Well, yeah,
there's
sure
some-
you can. You just launch
No,
it. Hey, you know what?
I
Here
mean,
you
can
go.
launch
I'm doing
but,
it. Yeah.
You know, you're not. There's going to be another Congress in
Right. No,
less than a
you
month
won't
and
even.
a half.
No, they won't show up to do anything. They'll return to Washington only to pack their offices, if anything. But the president will demand it, and they'll say, "I will put out the press release that will allow you to say, see, I demanded it, and they did it, but we're not going to do anything. We don't have time, even if we wanted to do this, which we don't." So there's just not a lot
what are you
that they
gonna
can do.
I mean, you're going to spend 2 weeks wasting time. I mean, I don't even know. Do they have 2 weeks? I mean, I doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, Thanksgiving happens, and then it's Christmas, and what are you going to do?
Right. No, I usually the time, if at all, if they use it at all, would be occupied with retiring members or members who lost will come back to name a couple of post offices.
Right, and there will be what? Maybe there's some budget thing that needs to be done. I don't know.
No, not
that's
even,
actually.
but-
I don't even think that's out there.
So some resolutions, perhaps they would use it for that and pass a bunch of resolutions that declare one thing or another that's incredibly unpopular to be very popular. But substantively, yeah, usually it's people who say, I promised, thus and such a veteran in my district that, we would name.
Did I name a post office after him?
Yeah, well,
Okay,
the
fine.
family of a deceased
Yeah,
veteran.
I hear you.
something.
I'm just saying, it's just.
That's what they do, usually. I don't know. I mean, they could come up with anything, I guess. If they really go crazy, anything's possible. But, yeah, and we always warn about that. But, do I think they're prepared with anything? No. No, I don't think they have any bills. They don't have any ideas. There's nothing for them to want to do. I don't think Mitch McConnell wants anything in particular. That's the guy to watch. I mean, if you think something's
Exactly.
going to get done.
I mean, and I don't know. Where's. Yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah,
I
nothing.
haven't got anything. And I'm sure they'll surprise me with something, but I can't guess what it is in this atmosphere.
Yeah, I can't either, and there's just not enough time. And I actually think Trump will be tired, and
Yes.
he'll fight about why the election came out the way it came out, or he'll gloat about how well he did, or he'll say it's not my fault if he does badly. I mean, that's what we're going to get for 2 weeks.
Yes, I would guess so.
Not actual action in Congress. It's just going to be a
No.
lot of, Trump tweeting and.
They're all going to be
saying how
exhausted
he
too.
really didn't lose, or look how big his win was, or
Mhm.
things like that. That's what we're going to get, right?
That's my best guess at it. I mean, he may. It depends how angry he gets or how badly he's prodded by people like Stephen Miller, I guess, to make wild claims about things. Does he simply say the loss is not my fault, or does he really go crazy and say the loss is not a loss? I refuse to recognize it as such.
Well, I mean, clearly, if they hold the Senate, he's going to declare victory. We held the Senate, unprecedented.
Yes.
No president has ever held the Senate in a midterm.
Right.
You think I'm joking? He's going to say that.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. Yeah, that would absolutely
And of course,
be what he
in
would
case
do.
you don't know, as a matter of record, many presidents have held the Senate in the midterm.
Senate is not
The last
easily
president
turned over.
held the Senate in the midterm in 2010. We held the midterm. The big shellacking we got, the landslide loss, the huge repudiation of Obama in 2010.
Yes.
We held the Senate.
Okay.
Just remember when reporters start saying to you, well, it really wasn't a repudiation like 2010. I mean, the Republicans held the Senate. And I guarantee you a reporter will say that.
Yes, a reporter, if he says it's unprecedented, it will be reported. And then somebody else will pat themselves on the back for saying, the president says without evidence.
Without evidence.
Like, no, but there is evidence.
There's evidence that it's not true.
Yeah.
No, but I'm talking about a reporter on one of these round tables.
Oh, yeah.
Morning Joe will say this wasn't like 2010. I mean, the Republicans did hold the Senate. And again, I'm going to repeat for you one last time. I repeat, the Democrats held the Senate in 2010.
Yes.
Oh, but it wasn't 63 seats. It was only 37 seats. So it's much different.
Mm-hmm. Well, there will be a lot of craziness and a lot of spin like that. As far as substance, I can't imagine. I don't know of anything. If there was anything to be done, it would have to have been written already, and legislation from Congress.
Oh no, they're not going to do anything in the late duck. I mean, I think what you and I have just been doing is what's the spin?
Okay.
Trump's going to scream, and I think he keeps going on the caravan. By the way.
Oh yeah, I assume so. I'm not certain he's done with rallies.
Stop on the caravan. He's going to keep talking about that caravan.
Yes, he's got to build continuing. I mean, they're not going to be here for a month. He has to do something to justify putting out more pictures of the troops that are there.
And I predict we'll get into Christmas season, and the caravan will be coming, and people will talk about Jesus in the manger and not being let in the city, and having it's going to be cliche city all over the place.
Yes,
and what real Christians are these? And it's the same stupid conversations we have every year. And because why we have the same stupid conversations? Because people just don't accept the reality. Fox News is Trump central. Republicans are deplorable, despicable racists, and the people that vote for them are too.
Yes,
but that includes, or especially means the evangelicals.
Yeah,
and there's not economic anxiety. That's not why the white working class votes Republican. And we keep pretending all those things aren't true. So we'll have the same discussion year after year after year, even though we should know better, but we don't.
Alas.
Anyway, on that cheery note,
yes,
let's go.
All right. Yes, go.
Let's do it today.
Blue wave.
Andrew Gillum, the Democratic candidate for governor of Florida, let's bring it home.
Okay. I'll take it. He's been rhetorically brilliant to this point, so we'll go along with him on this one. Okay. Thanks, Armando.
Thank you, man.
Have you voted? Did you vote? What was your story?
I did vote. Do you want to hear my story quickly?
Sure.
I voted like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Well, that is quick.
I went 2 weeks ago by myself to vote. I did not bring my parents, as I told you.
Yes.
I told them I was too busy. I got, I don't have time, but I went and snuck out and voted anyway, and I didn't take them to vote.
Okay.
So I'm +3.
Very good.
All right.
Okay, great.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you again, and perhaps tomorrow when we have some results. Yes, time for me to get things together and walk over, and I'll give you a report tomorrow on how that went and what the precinct looked like. We'll close it out then for now and just say happy waiting to you. I hope you're not too anxious. Keep this in mind. Tweet storm I didn't share before from Matt Iglesias. Just again about what waves are and how polls work. And he has said the other day, this is a good point, weird to think of that the question of whether Republicans get 48% of the vote, which would be enough to hold the House thanks to gerrymandering, as you know, or either 48% or 46%. That question is going to supposedly answer the fundamental question about the nature of America, because tomorrow that's what you're going to be served up, that a fundamental question about the nature and direction of America has been determined, and it all came down to whether essentially Republicans got 48 or 46% of the congressional vote. Trump's 46%, of course, we were reminded, was enough to score an electoral college win, dooming us to years of diner journalism about real America. But if he'd gotten 45% instead of 46% and lost, we'd be hearing that real America is a bunch of woke Whole Foods shoppers. Anyways, as he concludes, elections are important because they decide who governs the country, but looking to election results as a way to understand the views and demographics of a huge, diverse country containing many apolitical people is a bad idea. And yet that will be the dominant feature of tomorrow's coverage, probably tonight's coverage as well. In the meantime, listen to some serious coverage by staying tuned for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam next. Let's see what he's got. Fox Business. Not happy when the former ICE director said that rather than being an invasion, the caravan is a humanitarian crisis, like they used to call the migrant crisis over in Europe, yes? Rest of the menu for today, the Indiana GOP was forced to drop a completely tone-deaf rally appearance by NRA President Oliver North, but only after parents pushed back. Facebook booted 115 suspicious accounts linked to a foreign entity after an FBI tip on the eve of U.S. midterm elections. That's today. And the DOJ's Civil Rights Division has not filed a single Voting Rights Act case since Trump took office.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show.
With David Waldman.
That's right. Not a single Voting Rights Act case since Trump took office, and that's because, of course, Republicans consider voting a privilege. It should be the Voting Privileges Act. And lastly, let's see. Trump says he doesn't agree with his own government climate report that he never read, and a toxin in the U.S. corn harvest poses the latest headache for farmers already hard hit.